Hey, what up? It's Brad with Home Love Construction, and in this video I want to address and explain to you what value engineering is. Value engineering, to put it very simply, is adjusting the plans for a project in order to bring down the cost and meet somebody's budget. To put it very simply, that's what it is. Make it smaller or make it less fancy to bring down the price. That's, in a very simplistic form, that's exactly what it is. So how does this actually apply to you and your project, and what does it really mean? Like, what actually do people change in order to execute the idea of value engineering? Well, one thing, like the first thing that always gets hit in the value engineering process, and by the way, the time that you do value engineering is usually when you've designed a project and it comes back and the contractor quotes it and you're like, wow, that's double my budget. Let's bring this back a little bit. That happens a lot, a ton actually. So in order to fix that or help, get it to a place where it's like, okay, I see the value, but I just can't afford to do that. The first thing that always happens whenever you enter the value engineering stage is, can we make it smaller? Can we make the project a smaller footprint? Can we do less of something? The thing that you have to keep in mind is that almost all subcontractors and contractors and suppliers, they charge by the linear foot or by the square foot. That is almost how all construction is done. Again, that's by the linear foot or by the square foot. So the size of what you're doing and how many feet and square feet of the different materials it takes affects not only the material price, but also the install price. Drywall installers charge by the board, by the sheet of drywall that they hang and finish and texture. So flooring installers charge by the square foot of floor that they install. So everything that's done by the square foot, if you make the footprint smaller, if you make the building a smaller building, if you bring the ceilings down, or if you shrink a wall back in, that is going to reduce your cost in the most drastic way possible. Reductions in size do cause the biggest reduction in price. Now that said, in more advanced and serious, and I shouldn't say serious necessarily, but more complicated projects, there's some other things that value engineering goes into. Number one is that if you're trying to remove large swaths of load-bearing walls, or if you're trying to put a lot of windows in a wall, you may run into your engineer actually requiring a steel beam to span across that wall to hold the load. Windows don't hold the weight of whatever's above them. The weight has to be above them and the window just sits in the hole. So sometimes if you put a lot of windows on a back wall, like let's say you have a waterfront view or something like that, or you have a pond in your backyard or a lake or a river, you might want to be able to see your beautiful view at the back. But the engineer might say, okay, you can do that. We just got to put a big 16-inch steel I-beam above it that's 50 feet long. That's going to be an expensive piece of metal. In our area, that 50-foot I-beam is probably going to cost you $15,000, just the I-beam to buy it and get it in place, not including everything else. So that's a pricey thing. Now, if you took 7 of those 23 windows out and you just condensed them to a couple places where you're likely to sit, that would be a value engineering thing. You're reducing the number of windows and you're reducing the cost of not needing to put that I-beam in there. We actually just ran into this on a project where the engineer was able to slightly rework the window positioning so that there were bigger columns between the windows, and now the block itself is able to hold the weight of itself and the second story above it. The steel beam went away. Literally, it saved $15,000. Now, keep in mind that if you're one of my clients and you're doing a design and there's no steel beam to take out of the design. So there's not always ways to value engineer something. If you're doing a 200 square foot room add-on, room addition, and you want to value engineer it, and we're already down to, it's got a basic bathroom, we're not doing anything crazy on the walls, it's 8-foot ceilings, it's got a flat roof, there's no way to value engineer some things. This is somewhat of a pipe dream for some people to value engineer things, because in some situations, you have to take certain steps, otherwise you're not going to get the desired end result. So realize that value engineering, although a valuable thing to do, and people do love to do it, A, a lot of times it takes away key design features, which are a lot of the reasons that people do the projects in the first place, and B, sometimes on smaller projects, like even a project that's $100,000, you might not be able to value engineer that. That might be at the minimum viable size and layout that you need to achieve your master suite or whatever you want to add on. So realize that it's not always possible. That's the other side of this, is value engineering is not always feasible, it's not always possible. A lot of times it is, but it's not a guarantee. So that said, if you're interested in designing a space that works for you and works for what you want, and you want to design something that, although it can be value engineered, the most important thing to you is that it fits your space. You can go to homelove.construction/design and we can actually help you with that design. Now, I do want to caveat that by saying we can value engineer things, but it's not always possible, and we'll tell you when it's not possible. So if you want the real talk on what it actually is, if you want to speak to a professional estimator and have them actually go over costs with you before you start your design, that process is all a part of the way that we do our design. So go to homelove.construction/design if you need help with your design. Even if you're out in Montana, we can still help you. The building is basically, the design of the buildings is basically the same in Florida as it is in Montana. So go to homelove.construction/design and we can help you out with your design even remotely. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid. Peace.